saying, man, the streets ain't talking about you, man. If I can't spin a block and find out about you, man, the people ain't about you, man. That's just what it is, you know?
But I got to
talk about it in the streets, man.
Yeah, this one's for the streets first. Stripes like a referee shirt. This one's for the streets first. Tell mama this the rebirth. Say I need church, I talk dirty. Put my hands and my feet work. Teamwork, put in pain, but gotta bring it to the streets first.
It's your boy Butta, and I'm back with another episode of that Streets First podcast. You already know how your boy do. I goes out and I brings them out. And right now I'm in Harlem. I am with a revolutionary leader of love, Pastor Micheal Walrond at 1 Corinthian Baptist Church in Harlem. What's up, Pastor Mike?
What's up, baby?
Good to see you, man.
Always good to be with you, bro.
I needed to take the time out to, be able to show this generation and the next generation some of the leadership and the positivity that I'm around, especially that's going around right now in Harlem with you being here. First thing first that I wanted at least my listeners to hear is why Harlem?
In terms of why I'm here?
No, meaning what made Pastor Mike choose
Harlem?
Yeah. See, I want them to know I've heard most of your stories, so I know how to start the conversation.
Yeah.
What made Pastor Mike choose coming to Harlem?
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. I had a relationship with this church since 1991. 1991, I was in college at Morehouse.
Shout out to Morehouse.
Yeah, I was in college, and my son was just born in May of 91.
Okay.
But my roommate at Morehouse was a minister. He was in ministry too, but he was a member of 1 Corinthian Baptist Church. He ended up eventually becoming the pastor. That's who I succeeded. But he and I did youth revival together. So we would preach for like 3 nights or whatever it was. I did one night, he did one night, and then we did a night together. And that was my first time coming in 91. I would do youth revival for those 91, 92, 93. And then in 96, he became the pastor, my friend. Became the pastor of the church. And by the time he became the pastor, shortly after, I started pastoring a church in North Carolina when I finished grad school at Duke University. And so he would then have me come do their revival, their annual fall revival for 3 nights. And I did that for years. Where I was in North Carolina in Durham, church was going great. I loved it. My wife was doing well. She had just become in 2002. She had just become a principal. She was the youngest principal in Durham, North Carolina. Wow. When she became a principal, she had just turned 31. And she was a elementary school principal. And so our life was good. My friend who was here told me that he was leaving the church to pursue other things. I was like, okay. And then the trustees from this church reached out to me to ask was I interested in coming. And I said to them, absolutely not. I didn't want to come because although I'd always had dreams of coming back home to New York, things in North Carolina were good. And I didn't need to leave, right? Everything was good. I was pastoring at church. I was also on staff, faculty at Duke University. And so I was good. And but something told me to just apply. But even when I applied, I didn't really want to come. So I applied, but I knew if I applied, I was going to have the upper hand, right? Because I had known the church for so many years. So many people had heard me preach. And so I remember coming to the interview they had here. And I actually told my wife, I said, I'm just gonna kind of be kind of belligerent. I was like, because I didn't really want it. I wanted to sabotage it. I was like, I didn't want to move and uproot my family. So in the middle of the interview, there's like 2 or 3 levels of interview. In the middle of one of the interviews, I tell them it's the God factor, right? Because I said to them, look, if you call me to be the pastor, I said, I promise you, in a few years, there's gonna be people waiting in line to get in this building. And everybody in the room laughed. Yo, when they laughed, that was like the energy I needed, the fuel I needed, because they doubted it. I didn't doubt it. I wasn't saying that to be cute. I believed that in my heart. I knew the gifts that God had given me. I trusted in that. But then on top of that, I trusted that if I'm supposed to be here, because everywhere I had gone in ministry had grown. When I started at the church in North Carolina, it was a small family church. It had like 30 members. And that was in 96. By the time I leave in 04, it's 650 members, right? So when I came to FCBC in 04, there was like 300 members and maybe about 150 maybe on Sunday mornings. And they didn't believe they could anything. They didn't believe they could grow.
If you don't mind just throwing it out there, what it is now?
Yeah, I mean, on the roll, it's probably like 11,000 and change. But I say of the roll of real members engaged consistently, still large. It's probably about 7,500, 8,000 who are consistently engaged.
Now, if you say throughout the years, what was it like that process? Okay, you've made a change. You can see somewhat of what you know you're capable of doing. Speak a little bit to us of the 20-some plus year process now.
Oh man, I mean that's a whole.
If you, I mean, not. If
Yeah,
you go
I
short
think.
and
Yeah,
people-
no, I'll make it quick. No, I think that one, I had studied before I came here. I did some kind of demographics work about Harlem, because when you're doing ministry, it's almost like real estate. They tell you it's location, location, location. Same things with churches. I think there are people who pastor churches who have aspirations of having these big churches, but the location and demographics don't suggest it's possible. And I will also say this: I don't come into a church thinking about I want to grow the church and be big. If you'd asked me 20 years ago that I think FCBC would be what it is today, absolutely not. I never had numbers or some target. I just knew what I said. I knew there'd be people waiting online, like I told them. But the other piece is, how many children you have, Adrian? Three. What's their ages?
25, 18, and 3.
Okay, so let's take your youngest one, right? You could do all three. When all three of your girls were born, when you sat there when they were born, you're in the hospital seeing them. At no point did you ever ask yourself, to their mothers, you think they're gonna grow? No parent asks if the child's gonna grow. What you believe is what? I feed my child, I take care of my child, I provide shelter, clothing, food, all that stuff. Growth is gonna be automatic. So I don't go into a church wondering if the church is gonna grow. I wanna make sure it's a healthy church. If the church is healthy, the growth will come automatically. And so I focused on things like that: becoming a loving church, reimagining the structure of the church, making sure that people understood what my vision and mission was. And then I it's like ball. When I played ball, my mother hated to come to basketball games because I was a person. I'm gonna give 110% to the point of exhaustion and be mad, cursing mad if the coach tried to take me out of the game. I want to play every minute of the game. And I left everything on the court every time I played. Well, the same thing in ministry. I give everything I got. Every time I come up to Sunday to preach, I'm giving everything I got. I don't have as much now. I'm a little older now. But when I first got here, I was 33. I'll be 54. But I'm still the same mentality. I figure if I do my part, help reimagine the structure of the church, the infrastructure of the church, and really, and then trust the research. Here's what research told me. Harlem had 500,000 people in Harlem proper, right? 500,000 people in what you would call Harlem. And 500 churches. That's a lot of churches.
Wow.
But only a handful of churches with memberships over 1,000, which meant that people weren't really going to church like that in Harlem. In terms of church culture in New York City, the borough that was known for churches and people going to church was Brooklyn. Harlem was where people went to hang out, party. Sunday was a day of recovering from hanging out on the weekend, Friday, Saturday. And then you never really related Harlem as a church village. Historically, you had 3 churches that would be considered Harlem that were known. Riverside was known, Abyssinian, and then Canaan, right? But they were known in part, Abyssinian and Canaan, because you had 2 historic figures, Adam Clayton Powell, and then Wyatt Walker, who was like Martin Luther King's lieutenant in the movement. So it wasn't really known for churches growing, and Harlem had not seen a church grow in a massive way since probably Abyssinia. At one point, Abyssinia was the largest Black Baptist church in the United States at one point, back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s.
History.
Yeah, it was the largest Black Baptist church in the United States. So I had not seen this kind of monumental growth. The other piece in my research was foot traffic. 116th, one of the major thoroughfares in Harlem. So you got like 116th, 125th, 135th, 145th. Those are heavy foot traffic, right? So I also knew that there would be foot traffic going back. The third piece was in an area where there's not parking. The next question is, how close is the church to Subway, right? So one block east,
BNC train.
one block west,
2 and 3.
there you go. So now it's accessible that I can get off the train and walk a block and be at the church. So foot traffic, easily accessible by public transportation, right? And have a building with capacity. Now the building was jacked up when I got
So that was,
it was terrible. I mean, falling apart. The balcony was about to be condemned by the city, which would have put them, we got a notice when I got here, they was about to put us out of the building. It was in such bad repair. I get here in 2004, there's no air conditioning in the building because the AC, just to give you a perspective, the air conditioning had broken, it broke in 1983.
The air conditioner's been broke since 19.
I'm here in 2004, there's no AC since 83.
Whoa.
So that's 21 years, no AC. That means in the summertime, they were moving service up earlier to beat the heat. I was like, this is crazy. So I remember getting here and asking the leader, the deacons, oh, why you don't have air? Well, it's expensive. It's too expensive. Well, how much it costs? I don't know. Well, how do you know it's too expensive? Now, it was expensive. To get AC in here was like over $500,000 because you had to replace, you had to put a 60-ton chiller unit on this roof, which was expensive. And then you had to rework a new digital system with an old system in this building. All the ventilation is still in place, but you had to wire it differently. It was crazy. So my first Sunday, July 25th, 2004, I stood in the pulpit and was like, listen, it's ridiculous that we don't have air conditioning in this church. I said, I went out on a limb. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I said, a year from today, I promise you we're going to have air conditioning. Everybody,
we're gonna have this done.
We're going to have this in a year. Everybody's like, whatever. Most because, 21 years, and this new guy jumps in, all of a sudden, he's going to be the one to bring the air. And so what I'm big on is I'm good at identifying talent, right? And identifying people who I think can fulfill the vision. I put a team together, some who had just started joining the church, some who were here with some of the trustees, and I said, we're going to go ahead and get this loan. We're going to put this building up as collateral. They was like, but no. I said, we're going to be fine. I knew it was going to be fine paying it back because I said, this church is going to grow. We're going to be fine. So that was July. Did all the work that was July 25th. By the end of the year, 2004, from July to December, 350 people had joined the church. They had never seen anything like that. So I knew we was going to keep that steady flow. And so then, that was 4th Sunday in July. I told them we were going to have the air, 2004. 4th Sunday in July, 2005, we flipped that switch for the AC. And folk was like, yo. I remember that Sunday, folk who had been here for years, grew up in church, they were all happy, people shouting, because it was a win. They hadn't had a win. The next thing, that was 2005. The next thing I wanted to tackle was the balcony. You had, at the time, 855 seats in the balcony, but only like 30 worked. They were all busted. And they was like, and here's what, you have people with limited vision. And this is important. Whenever you're a leader, you have to expect a few things. The vision that you have as the leader will never be matched by anybody working with you.
Ooh, can you say that one more time?
Yeah.
I had to make sure they rewind that.
The vision of the leader will never really be matched, and the passion for that vision, by anyone else. That's why you're the leader. You're the visionary, right? They may follow it, but usually when people follow your vision, they're following you before they follow your vision. They build up trust in you. It's the trust they invest in you that makes them trust your vision. Right? Because most of the time, the vision you're going to put before people, the first immediate response will be like, that's a lie. It was like me in the air, right? We don't know. Or me telling them people going to wait in the line for the church. We don't see that. Right? So you can't get You can't get upset or dejected when people don't really see it the way you see it. If they could see it the way you see it, there'll be no need for you, right? So I remember when I talked about fixing the balcony, I had leaders here say, well, we don't even use the balcony. I said, yet. I said, people are coming to fill this place up. I said, when they come, we need to have the space ready. So then I did research on that building, and I moved this quick because I'm gonna jump ahead to 2025. But did the research, we found that this building was built in 1913. The company that put those chairs in those are the original chairs. Wow. The company that put those chairs in was still around in 2006. Reached out to them, and they said they came in, they talked about the price, not just for the chairs, but to redo the floors, everything was messed up. And they came in, because these are not, you put theater seats in a place now, they plastic. Like if you go to Magi, those are plastic. The frame is plastic. Okay. These are steel frames, all right? So they don't even make steel frame theater seats like that anymore. So I knew it was gonna be expensive, right? And then to restore the whole balcony. Man, they came in at $550,000 to restore the whole balcony. Oh, and I was like, man, we just knocked off a loan for $5 and change. I was like, oh, I'm gonna go old school. So I talked to him and I said, listen, I said, I want to do an old, because it was a white guy named Eric. I said, man, I want to do an old school concept. He said, what's that? I said, you may not know about this. I said, but in my community, we talk about layaway.
Layaway.
I said, I want to take a layaway approach. He said, what do you mean? I said, so here's the deal. We got 855 seats, 3 tiers. I said, I'm going to raise the money so you can take the first tier out. By the time you bring that first tier back, I have the money for the next tier and have paid this off. So we did it a tier. So you could see, you could stand in the pulpit and see a whole tier empty, just no seats.
That's right.
So we did that over the course of like 9 months, something like that. And we did old school, no loan. We had people, listen, I need, like I would have came to you, Asia, I need you to purchase 5 chairs. Or I need you to get 7 chairs. So we paid it that way. And remember, the church is growing, people excited. So people literally would purchase, I'm gonna buy 4 chairs. And that's how we paid it off, no loan, 500,000+ to do that balcony. It was no loan for that. And so when he was finishing it, they were restoring and refurbishing, but there was 150 chairs that could not be fixed. And I told my man, I said, bro, we don't have money for this. I have no money. He said, Pastor, I got an idea. I think I know how to get the chairs. I said, let me tell you, you may have an idea to get the chairs, but if your idea necessitates more money from us, it ain't gonna happen. I said, because we don't have it, bro. I was like, and I'm like, I didn't know what to do because 155 chairs is missing and we can't afford to get the rest. I'm like, oh. He said, no. He said, this idea I got, just trust me. Now, let me just say this. You know, I grew up a particular way, right? And where I grew up. I didn't grow up around white people coming up. Okay. My community was all black. The only white people, I grew up in Roosevelt, New York. The only white people I ever remember seeing was some of the teachers in elementary school who were not from Roosevelt. So Roosevelt was an all black enclave in Long Island. So, you know, when a white man tell me, trust me, I was like, all right, bro. And so, man, about maybe 4 weeks later, he calls me and said, the chairs are gonna be delivered today. I was like, we don't have to pay for these shit. No. Man, this 18-wheeler pulls up with all these boxes of chairs. I was like, because the whole process, he said he was gonna get them. I said, how you getting? He said, I can't talk about it. So when they brought the boxes in, because it was a chair in each box, and in the box, the shipping joint was from Canada. So I was like, you got these chairs from Canada? He was like, nah. He said, these chairs are compliments of Fidel Castro in Cuba. What happened is he was doing a project at the Grand Havana Theater in Cuba. Ooh. They reduced the size by about 300 seats. They used the same exact chairs we had. He went and told them, and they gave them to us, plus paid to ship them to us. When they told us it was a black church in Harlem, they paid for them and sent them.
And can you see how God works?
So it was like, so that's how we fixed it. So you got to think about it. I get there in 04, 05 air, 06 balcony restored. Those are 2 big wins. You can't build momentum as a leader. Well, you can, but one of the best ways to build momentum as a leader is victories. You got to have wins. Because if you don't have wins, there's one, no momentum. Two, people have no reason to trust. Because when I said, let's do the balcony, you had some people saying, the other people were like, well, he said we was going to have air in the year and we had it. So why doubt it now? Let's see what's going to happen with the chairs, right? So it was all those kind of things early on. And church is growing. Church is growing. So I get here in 04. 04, 350 people joined. That 6-month period. 05, 500 and change joined the church. 06, 600 and change joined the church. 07, it was like 700. 08, it was like 800. We're talking about in 1 year. 09, 1,100 people joined the church in 1 year. So between 09 and 2016, we averaged 1,500 people a year joining. It was banana. I had never seen anything like this, bro. I had never been part of anything like this. And it was mind blowing to me. And I realized that the word was spreading. People were coming. And Harlem had not seen a church do that since the early days of Abyssinian Baptist Church.
When you have, let's say, like, we are an ever-evolving community of visionaries, dreamers, and doers who have been called by God to live the lives we were created to live, commanded by God to love beyond the limits of our prejudices, and commissioned by God to serve. And if you can't remember those three things, if you can't remember all of that, 3 words: live, love, serve.
That's it.
So
there's a story to that.
I'm getting ready to ask you, knowing that you can see the shift in Harlem and you made that a statement for the church. Speak a little bit more about that.
That statement came in 09 because it's our identity statement. So it's hard. You got some pastors who, and it's no shade or no judgment. You have a pastor come into church and they come with this vision, they have all these things. My thing was, I don't know. One of the interview questions they asked me in the interview was, what's my vision for FCBC? Okay. I was like, I have none. I was like, how can I have a vision? I'm not the pastor. You're interviewing me. And then I told them, I said, if there's any person who came to you with a vision, and they said they had a vision for the church, I said, don't trust them. Because you can't have a vision for a place that you're not the leader. That means they got like a prescribed idea of a vision that doesn't take into account the singular nature of this institution. So in other words, you can't create vision for the community when you don't talk to people in the community. You can't have a plan for the community if you don't know the community. So when I said that to them, after I was called to be the pastor, they said of all the people they interviewed, I was the only one who said they didn't have a vision. And I said, well, that tells you a lot there, because I said, there's no way I can know what the vision is until I get a sense of the church. So it took me about 4.5 years to get a sense. I saw the church growing, but I need to understand the community more. So in 09, I'm sitting at my desk at home, and I literally wrote that down I had a notebook, and I'm sitting there, and I was actually thinking about a sermon. I was trying to think about a sermon that week, and then those words came to me. I put it in pencil. It came to me just like that. We are in every evolving community, visionary dreamers. And the only thing that wasn't is doers. It used to be visionaries and dreamers. I added doers maybe a couple years later. But it came to me in one setting, no drafts, no edits. I wrote it on pencil. I came the next Sunday to the church and I said, this is gonna be our identity statement. And I wrote and I said it to the congregation and been saying it ever since 09. But that's how it came. It just one day I'm sitting at my desk and boom, those words came to me. And it's been the same words ever since. But those words capture what I believed was the essence of who we are, not just as a church, but as people who are learning to develop our relationship with God. We're called by God, commanded by God, commissioned by God. We're called by God to live. We're commanded by God to love, commissioned by God to serve. So it just worked out that way with the C's, the call, commanded, commission, right? Live, love, serve. I mean, it just flowed and it made sense. But it has become something that identifies FCBC, but it's also something that people relate to outside of FCBC, right? Now think about how long you've been coming to FCBC.
It's 2025. I've been coming to FCBC since 2010.
So 2010. And since 2010, you've been hearing these words. So it's not a surprise that you could sit here and hit the words back. Why? Because we've been repeating it. That repetition is the way you commit to memory, right? So my thought was that if we do this every Sunday, after a while, people start, at first they memorize it, and then you start feeling it, and then you start living by it, right? And it changes the dynamic. That was part of intentionality around changing the culture of the church. See, people, you always hear people now, we're going to shift the culture. We want to change the culture. I'm with that. But then what is the process? What is the way you change culture? How do you shift culture? For me, there's a process to change culture. All of our culture is based on two things, how we change culture. One, language. Two, practices. Language plus practice equals cultural shift. In other words, what is the language that shapes your organization, right? What is the language that shapes? Because the language is critical. Language is how we communicate. Language is always a signifier of something more. And language is always symbolic. If I look at this plant right here, and I'll say to you off the cuff, what is that? And you'll say, well, that's a plant. Well, we don't have to know what type of plant it is, but language tells us we agree upon the meaning so that we can both look at it and say the same thing. So what language does is language gives us shared meaning and shared understanding. So I could look at this and be like, what's the coffee table? You know, what are the glasses? This, if I say these are glasses, which they are, it doesn't get at the essence of what this is, the combination of the lenses, the plastic, the screw, but it's an easy way to symbolize what this means. Language is a symbol, all symbolic, and language is signifiers. But you can't change any culture without language. That's why it's important that language is at the heart of any transformation. If you think you can change culture without changing language, it won't happen. Well, then the second part to that is language plus practice. That means that the language you create has to be in alignment with what you do. So if I walk around saying, you know what, I want peace, but everywhere I go, I'm starting to fight, that language ain't in alignment it ain't in alignment with the practice, right? Because I can inherently say that's a contradiction. You want peace, but you always starting to fight. Come on, stop. So the practice has to be in alignment with the language. So when you got language and you got practice, then you got a culture you create. And we learn this from children in school. You recite ABCs, you know when nap time is. You go through we are actually, it is ingrained to us that language plus practice creates a culture. So I was intentional around the culture we created here. And then that culture became based around those three core values, live, love, serve, that we derive from our identity statement. That drives us, that shapes everything we do. So that identity statement is not just a statement we declare, it is how it's what helps us make decisions, what programs to do. What decisions we make are all based on our core values. If it doesn't line up with our core values, we don't do it, right? We pull back from it. And then I would say the other piece to that is what people know us for, which I'm so grateful. People know us for the work in the community, across the board, across the city. Yes. People want to say FCBC, committed to the community. We serve the community. Well, why? When I got here in 2004, I told the folk, I said, as this church grows, I'm not one of those people who get enamored by numbers. I said, as this church grows, it means we have a large responsibility to the community, right? And how do you know what the community needs? You talk to the community. And here's something I learned a long time ago. You treat the needs of the community as holy. Treat them as sacred. So that guides what you do. Why is that important? Because if the needs of the community shape the work, that means the needs of the community also determine the budget, which means determine how we spend money, right? We create budget around needs. Needs are determined by a relationship. What drives it all? Our identity statement. So it all works together, you know, hand in hand. So we did the Dream Center, which you did already with Serena. We created the Dream Center. Why did we create the Dream Center? Because I was in relationship with Watley Elementary School. They were trying to close Watley. They came to me to partner to help stop this closure. I was down with it. And it was clear they were closing Watley to make room for charter schools. So it was a co-located school. Some floors for charter school, some floors for the district school. The problem was the district school was getting the short end of the stick. The charter schools also weren't going on public money alone, but also private investments through Wall Street. Hedge fund people were pouring into the charter schools, right? And so I was like, this is insane. But not only was it insane, the district school, to make way for the charter school, was losing out on activities. You had a school that they weren't having gym, no phys ed. They killed the arts programs. No music pro. I was like, this is crazy. How do you go to school with no gym and no arts and stuff like that? So I was talking to the principal, talking to parents, and I said, yo, you know what we're gonna do? Dream Center. And we're gonna make everything free we do at a Dream Center, create programs that young people can participate in without having to pay, to supplement the fact that right in our neighborhood, there were schools that did not have extracurricular activity. That's why we started Dream Center. Everything we've started and done has been to meet the needs of the community. Breakfast before books. We serving breakfast 5 days a week during the school year, right? Why do we do that? Well, I'm reading an article years ago that said that Harlem had the highest rates of tardiness. There were students who were missing breakfast at school. Well, why is that? You would say to yourself, why can't parents just get up? But there's a problem here. Harlem also had the highest concentration of family shelters. So a lot of the kids who were coming late were coming out of the shelter system. So I was like, okay, well, here's what we're gonna do. We started this one day a week. We took information to the shelters and said that if you come to FCBC, you can get breakfast on the go. Again, meeting a need of the community. It turned from 1 day a week to 2 days a week, now 5 days a week, and we feed about 700 kids a week. Same thing, meet a need.
Can you speak a little bit about the Hope Center? Because
I'm about to hit you with that.
You know,
I'm about to hit you with that.
I can't wait to talk a little bit.
Yeah.
I know that being from Harlem and understanding the mental part of what the community may be dealing with, I don't think that they understand or know what they should know about the Hope Center.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I don't know if I say I take blame for that. I don't know.
So I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
The Dream Center is multi-generational. I've seen oldies but goodies.
Yeah. Everybody's in there.
I don't want to.
The Dream Center is definitely
the oldies in there
the Dream Center is definitely intergenerational. Honestly, right now, a lot of our seniors are dominating. So what happened is, just since you brought that up, during the pandemic, we started something in 2020 called Senior Connect. Why? You had we were all in the house, right? We all doing it. But you had seniors who couldn't access technology. You don't think about that. We were all in there, you and I, we in the house, we on the phone, we hitting social media, we looking at news, but we able to get on. Remember, we doing everything virtual. We able to get on the phone or get on the tablet. We had YouTube, we watching it. Seniors didn't know how to operate this technology. So we had to start teaching seniors how to utilize technology. It was helping seniors connect, right, with technology. So it became Senior Connect. And so that's when the seniors started. So it went from just helping them be able to be plugged in during the pandemic to then actually creating programs for our seniors. Like you come in here on a Wednesday afternoon, you're gonna see this stage full with seniors doing chair yoga, right? You're gonna see stuff at Dream. It's deep, but it's always to meet a need. You always meet needs by being in conversation. It's the power of relational meetings. You talked about relationships earlier. It's relational meeting. If you come to me and say, hey, Pastor, I think this is a good idea. Well, I'm not moved by ideas. Because everybody coming in with an idea is something we should be doing. I'm moved by needs, because you may have a good idea, but it may not be a necessity. You may have a good idea, but it's not a need of the community. So I have to hear your idea and see if there's actually a need, or you just come with an idea, right? So in conversation, two things happen, really, with the Hope Center. Here's the impetus. Here's the impetus to the Hope Center. It's me. When I say me, it is that in 2011, bro, I had an experience that messed me up.
I was here, I heard, I seen this church was hurt.
Yeah, I went.
Held on strong as well as you did too.
Yeah, well, no, there were several. I'm not talking about my health. Well, the health did contribute to it.
Okay.
But I'm gonna go reverse. I'm gonna say this. So I was in Seattle, Washington. And I'm good, everything's cool. I'm there on this trip. And I had this hotel, it was really nice. I had me on the 22nd floor with a killer view, looking at all of downtown Seattle. And I'm sitting there, just checked in. Seattle, if you've ever been, the air is crisp, man. It was like October. It wasn't over cold. People were telling me that Seattle you know, the rates of depression was high in Seattle because the weather's always rainy and overcast. I was there for 8 days. It was sunny every day. But my first day pretty much destroyed my trip. So I check into the hotel, I get in to the hotel room, and I go out on the balcony, killer view. I'm standing on the balcony, and I literally hear a voice in my head. And this is what it said 3 times. You know, if you jump, you can survive. Wow. That's what I heard in my head, bro.
3 times.
If you jump, you can survive. Scared the life. It was like I'm hearing you talking to me right now. Wow. Scared the life. I had never experienced this in my life. I remember, man, I felt the force pull me back in that room, and I was on the floor bawling in like fetal position, not understand. I don't know how long it was. It could have been hours. I didn't understand what just happened. I sat there the next morning. I was like, okay. And I didn't go near the window or the balcony for the rest of my trip. The expansion of FCBC, not just to LA, but the expansion of what we do, replicate this, replicate the Dream Center, replicate the Hope Center, right? Expand our services and our reach. And I believe we'll be able to do it within the next 10 years. I say within the next 10 years because I don't know if I'm gonna be around after that. I do have retirement in mind. Because, you know, I tell people see me, one, they think, okay, a lot of people, I mean, we black folk, it don't crack. So when I tell them I'm 54, they were like, I'll be 54. They're like, okay. And my son will be 34 this year, and my daughter's 30. And so, but I started at 25. This is my 29th year as a pastor. 8 years in North Carolina, 20 years here. That's a long time. When you do 30 years of any job, you're good to retire. I want to be here for sure when FCBC celebrates its 100th. It was, the church was founded in 1933. Yeah. So 2033, 8 more years. I want to be able, and 8 more years puts me at 62. So I may give a couple more years after that 62, but boy, I'm ready to bow out and tap out because that'll put me close to 40 years of doing this stuff. So it's like, I don't want to do anything. You got pastors who say, I'm a pastor till I die. No, sir. I want to retire when I can still go to the beach and run and have a good time and my grandchildren. And I don't want to be the cat you got to carry out the church. So my pastor said, you're going to stay till you die. No, that's not going to be my story. I want to leave when I can still travel, enjoy myself, go have some fun. You know what I'm saying? And do. I was on a personal, the only thing, just for the people who don't know, the only thing I can't do now that I love to do and I used to do, you remember, is that I used to ride a Harley. Oh, your bike. My bike. And I haven't been able to ride since I had my stroke in 2018 because of the seizures that my stroke caused. They were scared about that. But now I got some other physical issues that make sitting on that bike and riding for any prolonged time, and then the vibrations from the bike work my back bad. So, but I'm trying to, look, there's things as medicine. So I'm gonna start, they're gonna work on it because I gotta get back on the bike because I ain't been on my bike in like 8 years, bro. But I used to ride that bike to church on Sundays. That was my joint right there. Oh man, get on that bike and just be gone, man. After church, I'm out on the bike. So that's the one thing I haven't been able to do since, but I'm good. I mean, I'm grateful. I'm older, I can't play ball like I used to play ball, but I'm still a ball fanatic, you know. I said, we talk ball, because I could talk about ball all day, but I was on that show talking about, that's my lineup. I'm a Knicks fan. So what I said to him, I'm putting this, everywhere I go, I'm putting this out there. I said to the host, I said, you know, who got the best record in the league right now? OKC. And I said, well, OKC got a secret weapon. He's like, what's that? I said, they got a chaplain. The Knicks don't have a chaplain. I was like, my best friend is a chaplain for OKC.
Oh, man. Oh, you know I
said, so let me put it out there. I said, the Knicks need a chaplain. I'm ready for it. Let's go. Hey. Let's start the campaign. I was like, I'm ready for it. I said, that's what they missing. Yeah, I was like, that's what they missing.
The Knicks
need a chaplain.
I am going to end it off with that. Hey, Pastor, can I say this, please? Because I feel like I come to church so much that I would love to end my podcast with saying this. The doors of the church are now open.
I love it. I love it. But I appreciate
you,
good stuff,
Mike.
bro. Yes, sir.
We outside.
Yes, sir.
But I got you. About streets.
Yeah, this one's for the streets first. Stripes like a referee shirt. This one's for the streets first. Tell mama this the rebirth. I need church. I talk dirty.